Hello, welcome back to Scherable. I'm Bill Scher, another basement edition. Friday morning, post-second debate. If you had the chance to listen to the live stream, or if you haven't had a chance, feel free to go back and hear some of that play-by-play. But this might be a little bit more succinct. I think we actually learned something in the debate about what will be prioritized in Joe Biden's agenda. There's a lot of talk about the oil comment, and it's very possible that the Trump campaign will truncate a clip, turn it into a TV ad, spread it throughout Texas and Pennsylvania, and see if that might move the needle for them. But he really didn't say anything different than what he has said in the past or what's in his stated policy agenda on his website. Just he was a little bit more blunt about it, talking about transitioning away from oil. But he said over time, he said net zero emissions by 2050, which is all stuff that's been said before. But I do think it's relevant that he chose to say it bluntly, knew he was saying it bluntly, said this is a big statement. One, politically, I think his team knows that is useful messaging to energize the youth vote. It's good for the suburban vote to draw that distinction between Trump on climate. But I also don't think you say that kind of thing unless you are actually going to prioritize it as president. He is elevating expectations about what he can accomplish upon being elected. I happen to think climate's an area where there's the potential, I wouldn't say a high probability, but I do think potential for some bipartisan support. I might talk about that in a little bit. The second thing that I thought was notable was he said he would submit an immigration bill with a pathway to citizenship within the first 100 days. Again, something that he has said before. I'm not aware of him saying it since the pandemic hit. So if he wanted to stop saying it, he certainly could, and then say afterwards, oh, well, I said that before the pandemic, and now our priorities had to shift. I think he is well aware that is unfinished business from the Obama-Biden administration. There was disappointment in the immigrant advocate community about that. Again, not that Obama didn't try. They did try the DREAM Act in the first term. They had the executive orders in the second term, only one of which still stands, that being DACA. I think they're aware that they can't disappoint the immigrant advocacy community again. They can't risk depressing the Hispanic Latino vote by not following through on that again. And again, it's something that I do think has the chance for bipartisan support. It did get bipartisan support in 2013 when they had the Pathway to Citizenship bill. It just got stymied in the House. So that says to me, even though we'll still be in the pandemic and there'll be lots of crises, immigration is not off of Biden's radar, and he wants to push it in the first year. Both those things, climate and immigration, again, things that were not changes in position, just reaffirmations of priority despite the pandemic, which I think are relevant. The one thing that I think is a shift from what is on the website, what is still on the website, is how Biden is talking about the public option, the public health insurance option. This is what he said last night. I'm reading off the transcript here. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. Now, he said something along those lines in the first debate, but it came out a little garbled. Biden is not always the most precise person. Sometimes he says things sloppily or incompletely, and he cleans it up later. And I know Ron Brownstein, who writes for the Atlantic and at CNN, referred to the first debate comment as a mistake, pointing out he did not accurately characterize how public option is explained on his own website and how it is commonly understood. It is commonly understood as something available for anybody to purchase. It is an option. A government plan is an option for any individual instead of getting private insurance, and that it provides competitive pressure on private insurance to keep costs down. And some folks talk about it as a stepping stone to single payer, although Biden does not talk about it in that way. What Biden said in now both debates, and I think more clearly in the second debate, is that he has redefined public option in a much more narrow way, where it is not about something that's broadly available, but something that is filling a gap where states who have refused the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, those folks will no longer be left out to dry because they will automatically get enrolled in a federal plan. And mind you, the idea with Obamacare all along was that Medicaid expansion would be available to everybody in every state. And it was the John Roberts Supreme Court opinion that scaled that back while upholding the overall legislation. He said that mandatory Medicaid expansion was too coercive on the states and that had to be voluntary. And now you got a bunch of holdout states, not as many as there were, but still a fair amount, I think largely in the Republican South, where folks who would be eligible in other states currently can't get it. And you may still look at that as Biden being sloppy. He said what public option was before. That's still on the platform, on the website. He can still be held accountable to that. I've always argued that a full-blown public option would be a political non-starter. I don't think I might have mentioned it in some articles way back when. I've talked about it on Twitter. I talked about it with Liz Mayer on a recent Scherable. My basic political worldview is it is very difficult to get things passed when you face unified corporate opposition. When you can divide and conquer, when you can get some corporate support, even though you might have opposition elsewhere, then you're not facing the same kind of smothering of propaganda during the legislative process that can spook a lot of skittish Democrats. With the Obamacare process, yes, the Chamber of Commerce was spending a ton of money against it, but Obama cut a deal with pharma, and they were spending a lot of money too, and that blunted that attack campaign. I didn't think public option would be able to survive that kind of environment because the insurance industry sees it as an existential threat. They see it as a stepping stone to single payer. People like Bernie Sanders have talked about explicitly as such. I think the insurance lobby will treat it as such, and they would employ every scare tactic possible to kill it. And in my opinion, that would probably work and probably get Joe Biden to not want to expend the political capital on that when there's so many other pressing issues that they're facing. So to see Biden talk about it in this way now says to me that he doesn't want to have that public option fight. He wants to redefine the term. So it might be something that could be slipped in to more modest legislation. Again, time will tell, but that is how I read it. We all have the tendency to have pundit takes that fit with our priors, but that adds up to me. That healthcare is not going to be something that a full-blown public option fight is not something Biden's going to take on. Climate's big enough. Immigration is big enough. The pandemic is big enough. And healthcare has always been a political capital suck for anybody who tries. And most people don't even succeed. It's amazing that Obamacare succeeded at all. But Bill Clinton paid a price on healthcare. Donald Trump has paid a price on healthcare. It's not just that pushing from the left is a problem. Pushing it from the right is a problem too. Anything that futzes with status quo is complex and has winners and losers, and provokes key constituencies, and you rarely come out of it unscathed. You might argue it's worth it, like for Obamacare, that the long-term gain was worth the short-term pain. But again, I don't think getting public option, full-blown public option, is so critical to warrant the loss of political capital. There are other ways to get to universal coverage. You don't have to get it through public option. So my guess is Biden's going to take the more politically safe routes to try to get there, and save his political capital for some of the bigger fights. I think climate most likely being the biggest. And just to emphasize what I was saying earlier there, I do think there is bipartisan potential on those issues, because you have a business coalition right now that's for a carbon tax. You have a Supreme Court that would, I believe, uphold Congress's taxing power, because that is not terribly disputed. The dispute in Obamacare was that was Congress trying to use taxing power, because they were a little cute with their language. But if you're explicit about a carbon tax, I don't think that would ruffle the feathers of even the most conservative justices. So if you can get the business support, you can clear the Supreme Court threshold. I think you could theoretically get enough Republicans to clear 60 votes. Of course, there are a lot of ifs in there. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk in any stretch. Climate legislation is a complex beast, but you can see the outlines of it. You can see the path. And immigration is sort of similar. Corporations have been pretty on board with immigration reform. And if they put their shoulder into it, put some money into it, I think you could get the Republican support there in the Senate as well. Again, you wouldn't necessarily need a ton of votes, but I think you could get enough. So I see those as being where Biden is going to invest his energy for all those reasons. I think you should keep an eye on what Biden's going to do on healthcare. I mean, if what I'm saying is upsetting to you and you want to see him go bigger in healthcare, then you got to redouble your efforts and make that more politically viable. I would not assume that Biden is going to go for it based on what's on his website. Websites are words, and politicians. I think campaign rhetoric matters. I think people will often get held to their expectations, but you're seeing Biden lower those expectations right now in healthcare. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. I'll come back for another Scherable sometime soon. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please support this financially on patreon.com/BillScher, and I'll see you back here in a little bit. Take care, everybody.